There's one thing to be a solopreneur, but what is it like to be a couplepreneur? The dynamic can be twice as powerful, especially when there's communication, love, and connection. We're going to talk about that with a couplepreneur right after this. What is mindset? Our mindset is based on what we believe, and anything we believe in, we put into motion. I have spent my life putting the mindset of perseverance into motion, and now I am here today to share my journey along with others whose mindsets have changed the course of their lives. Hi, I'm mindset coach Lorraine Lindsey, and I believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. So are you ready? Welcome back to another episode of the Lorraine Lindsey podcast. We are all about mindset here. I truly believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. And today, we're going to be talking to a powerful, dynamic couple about their journey, not just as couples, but as they bond together to be super couples in the work of business. It's a conversation that I'm intrigued to have because I need to know their secrets, quite personally and frankly. So let me introduce my first time guest here so we can get right into all of these wonderful questions that I have for them. So without further ado, let me introduce Charles and Jazmine Orr. Charles and Jazmine are a dynamic husband and wife team behind Create Me Events and Rentals and the CME Event Studio. Originally from Atlanta, Georgia, they have called Las Vegas home for over a decade. In nearly 4 years, they have successfully built a thriving business known for its exquisite design and impeccable service. Married for 16 years and proud parents of 6 children, the Orrs have deep-seated passion for beautiful things and a talent for creating luxurious spaces where clients can enjoy seamless, memorable experiences. Their unique blend of creativity, attention to detail, and the dedication to customer satisfaction has earned them a reputation as one of Las Vegas' premier event planners and venue owners. Beyond their work in the events industry, Charles and Jazmine are committed to supporting other entrepreneurial couples or couplepreneurs. They understand the challenges of balancing a healthy marriage, a successful business, and a thriving family life, and they are passionate about helping others achieve harmony in these areas. Through their business and personal mentorship, they aim to create a supportive community where couplepreneurs can flourish both personally and professionally. Thank you so much. I love that bio. When I was reading it, I was like, this is so beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to kind of give a little bit of texture to how we met. We were at an event. It was Hazel doing her workplace therapy. Love Hazel.
Yes.
And you all were on the panel. And when I saw, and I was a panelist as well.
Yes.
But when I listened to you all speak, and you spoke independently, I was thinking to myself, first of all, how do I get them on the show? Because their dynamic is powerful. It's infectious. It was felt. There was authenticity in the messages that you both were talking about.
I appreciate that.
And I feel like we don't talk enough about the power of couples working together, being entrepreneurs, being great in family.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of times talking about breakups and relationship problems and marital problems.
Yes.
But I wanted to pivot, especially this season in my show, to really demonstrate to people, the audience out there, of how things can actually work.
Yes.
Right.
And the journey that it takes to get there. So let's just start with the journey that you all are, like, brought you to Atlanta, or just give us not Atlanta, Las Vegas, but give us a little bit of some texture behind your guys' love story and your business endeavors.
Yeah. Go ahead, babe.
Okay. So moving to Las Vegas was generally my idea.
Okay.
My wife, she used to come out here and visit her friend that was staying here. And I just thought, like, man, you always going to Vegas, but you never took me. And she was like, you really want to go? And I was like, yeah. So one time around Valentine's Day, she ended up booking the ticket. I was like, are we really going? She was like, yeah. And when we got on the flight, got here, of course, it's like a 4-hour flight. I think we might have left at night or something. But once we got here, just the lights, the environment, the surrounding, it just spoke to me. At that point in my life, I just kind of felt like I was transitioning.
We were really young, like
we
early 20s when we came.
Wow.
So he was like,
When you came to
mesmerized.
visit or when you moved?
To visit.
To
And
visit.
we moved 3 months later.
Yeah. So once I came, I just fell in love with the city, the lights. And then when we moved back, it was just playing on my heart. And I'm like, we're moving. And she's like, what? what do you mean we moving? I'm like, yeah, I want to move to Las Vegas. I was like, I start researching, kind of finding out about the local area. And ultimately, she was down for it. 3 months later, we end up moving out here.
Wow.
And we stayed here for about 6 months. We actually got married out here too as well.
That year we got married.
Yeah.
So we were already engaged.
Right.
We ended up moving here. And like he said, we arrived in the middle of the night and the lights that he saw just represented opportunity. I was really nervous to come, but we came.
Yes.
And it was short-lived. It was a culture shock coming from Atlanta.
Yes.
We went back at the end of the year. And then when we went home, we were like, Vegas, it's just calling us. This is where we need to be. And so since then, we've been here now 14 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So 2010 is when we moved
2010.
back.
Yeah.
Moved
Yeah,
and
2010.
didn't look back.
2010.
And did not look back.
Yeah. It's interesting too because I love that it was speaking to you. You were obedient to that, right? I
Yes.
say when there's a
Yes.
call in you that just won't stop. You gotta
Right.
you gotta answer the call sometimes, right?
Absolutely.
But you came, you were like, and then you went back. But kind of going back and then experiencing both dynamics, did it give you some sense of clarity?
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Correct.
We thought we were missing this.
Right.
This is what we know. This is our normalcy. So we wanted something different for ourselves. I had already been in school and things like that. So when we moved back, I was like, you know what? I'm going to dive in. This is an opportunity to seclude myself and do the things I need to do to further myself in the future. So I went and got my bachelor's degree, and then I went on to get my master's degree. So I'm actually a licensed clinical social worker. So I'm a therapist.
Yes.
So I maintained that licensure, and that kind of lended into where we are now in terms of the business and the relationships that I made. So it all worked together somehow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So when you first came to Vegas, did you even know what the plan was, what you all were
No.
going to do?
No, so my job at the time, I was doing sales for a company called City Search. So they used to be like Yelp before Yelp actually came on the scene. So when I mentioned it to them that I wanted to move to Vegas, I actually ended up telling a little fib. I said my wife got accepted into UNLV, but she did eventually end up graduating in the future.
I did.
But at the time she wasn't. But that's what I told them. And I said, I would love to stay with the company. Do you guys have any opportunities? So they was like, oh, actually, we do. It was a girl out there who was like a sales field rep. She was going on maternity leave. And it was like, so you actually contacted us at the right time. We can help with that transition pretty easy.
That's pretty interesting.
So I knew I had a job
crazy.
coming out here, but she didn't have one. And what did you end up doing when we came?
I was working like at Marciano.
Retail work or whatever. Yeah. But we was young and, we knew us
Literally.
together. We could make it
something
happen. Yeah.
And really that foundational belief for me, and which ended up kind of bleeding into him, is so my father he passed away 6 years ago now.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. But my parents were married 35 years. They met as children. So they had been together 50 years of their life. And so they always poured into us. It was just me, my mom, my dad, and my brother. So they were always like preaching marriage, partnership. So when he came into my life, that we just integrated that belief system. So when we got here, because I was terrified, and my parents were like, you're going to be okay. Go build a life. You guys are going to have a beautiful life. Being out of state, you guys have the opportunity to really bond in a different way. When we were in Atlanta, we knew the city, so we kind of did. We were always together, but we did a lot of separate things.
Yeah, and you also had your friends and you kind of normalcy of how you kind of like was doing life. So
we explored life together. We went around the city. We found areas we wanted to live in. So that really helped to strengthen our bond.
Which is really interesting because when you're in Atlanta, where you grew up, you have your own autonomy.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And so you have each other, but then you have your individuality.
Absolutely.
When you take that leap of faith, backed by support, right? From family support to do it. How was that like? Because for some people, coming together to a new place where you don't know anybody, you don't have those friendships, you don't have those familiar spaces, and you no longer really have your autonomy. For some, that can make people divisive and struggle. So how was it that it actually brought you closer together?
Well, for me, I would say the reason why I engaged or proposed to her was I just knew that she was the person that I wanted to do the rest of my life with. I felt like my life would be better if I know that I had her with me and she supported me the way that she always have and always been there. And I just knew between the both of us, we will figure it out. It's always going to work out. We always, ambition. We always got that drive. And then we also did have the support of family. If anything was to happen, that we can always go back and, rely on them. But us together, we just wanted to, get out there, kind of be grown and kind of do our own thing. So yeah.
That was it.
Fun.
I think the same for me. I think that we're both adventurous and exploratory people. So I think that the excitement of it is what really kept it fun instead of making it feel overwhelming. Like getting to a new city and not knowing people. At the time, I want to say MySpace was the platform.
Okay.
And they had these little indicators where like you could put in age, race, ethnicity, and all these different factors to find people. And literally some of our friends we have today, I reached out and was like, look, we're from Atlanta. We like to meet other couples. So we've always had this interesting theme that has been a part of our marriage, that we've always wanted to be in a family, community-centered, relational type of environment. And that's what we ended up cultivating from there. And we kept those friendships. So.
And I hear two things. Like one thing was setting the intention. One of the things that you said was, I knew you made almost like a declaration, if you will. Right? Yes. That you had that foresight for that. Do you feel like that is important for couples to have that type of clarity? Because I feel like people go into things, relationships, couples married, you go into things sometimes without setting intentions for one another and with one another.
Right.
Yeah.
And it seemed to me like what you were saying, it was like, I knew that this was going to be my wife, and you had clarity about that.
Yes, I did. And I think that was even just from when we started dating and started getting serious with each other, and we decided to move and live with each other. It was like you saying, just the intention, and communication has always been like a big thing. Me kind of expressing my feelings at times was a little bit of a struggle, but my wife is very like, communication is number one. Like, she's going to definitely let you know how she feel, express her emotions in the moment. She's not going to wait a couple days later and then tell you, oh, you remember when you said that the other day? Like, no, she going to let you know right there in the moment.
I love that.
But,
my kind of girl.
Correct. Right. And I appreciated that. For some people, that can be a little bit, can have somebody kind of taken back because it's like they're not used to somebody being upfront and direct. But to me, I respect that. And because that lets me know where I stand with you, how you feel about certain situation. And then that way it allows me to be able to either correct or to be able to, explain my side of something.
Right.
So because of that communication, I think, us just always talking to each other about what we want to do for the future, how we want our future to look like, what are our plans for like having fun and traveling, what kind of friends do we want to give her? So we always talked about life. What we got going on, but also what we wanted to do in the future as well. And I think that kind of helped the basis of us, moving out here and being intentional.
Well, it certainly laid down some foundations for you all, right? It's like we can build the house, but it has to be built on a specific type of foundation. And I think that might be where a lot of couples who struggle have neglected to do. It's like the story of the big bad wolf and the three little pigs. It's like, what has this house been made of? Where the big bad wolf is, life, huffing and puffing and trying to blow your house down.
And if it is not a strong foundation, it's tumbling immediately.
Right.
I think back to your question of like, do couples need that? I think that they do, but I think sometimes we don't have that clarity. So I don't want couples to feel that if they don't have the clarity that they can't build a strong foundation, because there are plenty of things that we have winged, right? Like moving here in 3 months, we were clear we needed to be here, but what that was going to look like, it was unfolding as we went.
Right.
So I think that we have been very intentional and clear in things, but at the same time, we've given to just life. It's like, you know what? Okay, we're gonna see how this unfolds because we trust what we've established between us.
I love
so the foundation was first where we were,
right,
and then we planted once we got planted.
So when we talk about foundation, let's use it in terms of words that people can relate to.
Yeah.
Okay.
What would you all say were the fundamentals for the foundation in which has helped you all to thrive?
I would say truthful communication.
Yeah.
Just really
And
like
break that down a little bit. Because
Yeah.
when we say truthful communication, is it my truth, your truth, our truth? Because, everyone has a truth.
your
I think it's
could be
your truth first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I can't speak for the truth of
Right.
the situation. I can just say what I feel and what's happening for me
Right.
in this moment and what I want.
Yes.
And I think it has to be direct communication and to the point in the moment. When we allow things to fester in any relationship, show me an example where that is okay.
Right.
How does that benefit a relationship? It never does.
I love that.
Now, while you need to be reflective and you can't just let anything fly off your lips, I understand that. But it is okay when you have a safe space in your relationship. And we cultivated that again. For me, it was from the example. And I took, you know how when you're a parent, you take the good parts of what you receive from your parents. If you had parents, you take the good and you apply that.
Right.
You try to negate and weed out the things that did not serve you. We did that. And I was able to share with him like, hey, these are things that I noticed growing up. And from his example, he shared, well, this is what I noticed growing up. And we weighed out and said, okay, was
what do
that
we
good?
want to do? Yeah. And what do we want to do?
And what do we
right?
want? Does
You know?
does that benefit our life and what we're trying to build? And so from there, the communication, the truthful communication to us was really having check-ins. We sat down and we had regular scheduled conversation about what is working, what is not working, and where we want to be in life.
I love that. And one of the things that you said and you mentioned was safe space.
Yeah.
Because here's what I found coaching people, talking to people, even having dealt with this in true candor in my own personal life,
Yeah.
is saying, this is how I feel. I'm not trying to be right or wrong. I am trying to be
That's it.
heard.
Right.
And I need to know that if I'm expressing what I'm feeling, my truthful communication to you, that I am in a safe space, that you can be receptive to it without you feeling like I am attacking you.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because even sometimes for those who are expressing feelings, I've seen the partner, because they actually genuinely love their person, doesn't want their partner to they don't like to hear that they've made their partner feel some kind of way. And so sometimes they end up being defensive and not creating a safe space.
Yeah.
So how did you all create that dynamic of that truthful communication, but in an atmosphere that it felt safe to be in your truth?
Well, for me, because I was the more vocal one, sometimes because I did not have that dynamic. So growing up, everything wasn't on an intimate level in my relationships, right? It was friendships. So in those dynamics, I had kind of learned that I had to be more loud and boisterous or sometimes the aggressor to be heard. So when I took that to him, he would hear me. But then I'll say, okay, now the way you delivered that to me as your man, that's not going to work.
Oh, I love that communication.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
You know, I was defensive in that moment. He is so calming and patient that he really brought me down and made me feel I don't have to be that woman. And it honestly wasn't something I wanted to be.
Right. Oh, I can so relate to that.
You know, like when you feel you have to show up so strong and hard, like I don't want to be that person.
Right.
But in him telling me, and to your point, even outside of the partner sometimes feeling defensive, I think we create a space where the partner then has to lie so they don't further agitate the person sharing their truth.
Which then breaks down your trust.
Which then,
Right.
absolutely.
Because sometimes couples think that trust is only in terms of fidelity.
Exactly.
And it's like, no, trust is a safe space to communicate. I need to be able to trust that I can be vulnerable.
Yes.
So trust is many different things, you know? So I love that you said that. The second thing that we were talking, that I heard you say earlier, was about compatibility. You had kind of mentioned some compatibility, like you both are adventurous and things like that. But in another sense, you guys are yin and yang. Like you said, there was that calm. So for people out there that are listening, because some people say opposites attract, then it's like, well, no, you got to be compatible in this. Where is the balance in that? Because I think in some things you need the opposite. Like, you know, like you said, I was more the aggressor, the strong, but he was the one that calmed the storm, so to speak.
Yes.
But in other things like adventure and being spontaneous or whatever, those were compatibilities that were important to you. do you think that it's first important for you as individuals, or do you think that you already had a sense of who you are and what you wanted in order to have that be synergistic in your relationship, or did the relationship help define that for you?
The relationship for me.
Or, relationship.
Yeah.
And I would say, for me, is like anytime you get into a relationship with somebody, you gotta understand that, or a partnership, it's a teamwork, right? So we gotta first agree that we both are in this to the end, or for whatever the duration, whatever the purpose is, right? So in our case, of course, being couples, we in this to be together. We in this to do life together. So with me, you gotta make sure that you always keep that as the focus, right? So when she's expressing herself or communicating or whatever the case is, I got to understand she's not coming from a mean or, trying to be divisive or trying to be hurtful in it. She's just expressing herself. So I always center myself back into, this is the woman that I chose to be with. This is the person that I want to do life with. I know she wants to do life with me. Sometimes I have to remind her when we kind of talking with each other. I love when he says that.
Right. I was trying not to smile, but I like it.
Yeah.
God, this is so mature.
Yeah.
I love this conversation.
Yeah, but sometimes you got to remind yourself, like, this is the person that you chose to be with. So we got to choose to be happy. We got to choose to want life to be the way that's beneficial for the both of us.
Yeah.
Does that mean we always going to agree? Of course not. I'm going to have my way of wanting to do things. She's going to have her way of wanting to do things. But at the end of the day, we still going to communicate to follow up on that common goal of, we need this to work for the both of us.
But to that point, that is why compatibility is important to me. I don't believe in the yin yang theory.
Okay.
I do.
Because he does.
But
And to this point, like, we have very different ideas of that, because there are things that you're going to require to move forward in life, right? Like, life is about growth, evolution. Anything that is not growing is dead. We know that.
Yes.
So to that point, if you get with a partner who is dead set against, I don't travel, but you want to do those things.
Okay, in that regard, yes. Okay, I can
You
see
get what
that.
I'm saying?
Right.
So,
No,
like,
totally.
when we look at real opposition in terms of things that we want to do and achieve in life, and you have a person, to me, what are the parameters of that relationship?
Right.
If we don't have that commonality,
That's true.
how are we going to, now, personality-wise, I'll give an example. We're both impulsive, right? So in that, we're not yin and yang, but our approach is different,
Gotcha.
which gives us balance, which makes it better for us. So for instance, while I'm a little more in your face and he's laid back, I'm like, you know what? You can talk to that vendor. You can make that connection where I cannot. I'm going to be way too much for that person.
Yeah.
But over here, these people need more energy, more vibrancy. I would be the go-to. So we have found ways that make it beneficial to us as married partners and in our business
partners.
Absolutely.
And so that circles back to the foundation. Then when we say, it's safe to say that fundamentally, when you're laying down foundational laws and principles for the dynamic, to say, this is where we really need to be compatible.
Correct.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Now, who we are
How
in
we
our
go
own
about
sense of
it.
self,
Right.
and how we go, that's where the yin and yang could find a harmonious balance.
100%.
Yes.
But the foundation has to be rooted in compatibility.
Yes, that's absolutely.
So I have a question, because something that really resonated with what you said, and I think this is so powerful, and I really want men out there to be inspired by what you said, is that I heard you say, I understand her, I see her.
Yeah.
And he does.
And I'm assuming that's obviously, there's a reciprocal to that, because I feel like that's a beautiful balance, because that's something that, again, self-included, that sometimes we're so focused on self and defending our position when we're feeling something with our partner, that we don't take that pause to remind ourselves that I'm choosing life with this person.
Yes.
But I also have to see them.
Yeah.
Not see what I want them to be.
There you
not
go.
see them in a way
And
that has to
he's
conform.
better at that than
than
me.
you are. But then he helps to
he
reel
still
you
brings-
in.
he- all the time. And he'll say, Jazmine, no. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, it's just a reminder of, like you said, being able to Because at the end of the day, we're still individual people, right?
Yes.
So we still have our own ways about doing things. We still have our own personal beliefs, right? We can still have a common belief, but we still have our own personal way about going about it. We have our own upbringing. We have our own experiences in life
Background.
that kind of shapes us in the way that we act or behave or whatever the case is. But if you're choosing, and I feel like everybody has the choice of who they want to be in a relationship with. So if you're choosing to be with this person and you're choosing to actually stay with this person, then you got to be accepting of who the person is, right? To some degree, right? You gotta, you gotta accept who they are. But at the same time, you can also try to help them to be a little bit better and maybe at some of the flaws and things. And then, of course, you got to be open to vice versa.
Right.
Them being able to help you in some of the areas that you may be flawed as well. So I think it's always a work in progress. You know, you're
One
never gonna
thing
get
that
to
I
a
love
place.
about him is that he really corrects me. Like if we were in this environment and I did something totally wrong, foul, whatever the case is, he's not going to say it then. He will do his best to like, let's exit before you make a fool of yourself type thing. But he corrects me. We have other couple friends and we're like, why would you have your person out here looking like this and you don't correct? Like, that's not cool to me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let my friends look crazy, let alone my husband. Let alone him letting me look crazy. You know, there are times he'll say, kind of go back and fix that. You might owe that person an apology. You might need to do, and I receive it because I know he has my best interest.
But this is what's so beautiful and what, God, I love to hear this because this is probably the healthiest couple conversation I've had in a very long time.
Good.
But I love to hear this because, again, when I'm going to circle back to the safe space thing, it's like understanding that you're allowing your husband space to correct you without it being like, let me be, this is my space, don't tell me what to do, and vice versa, like you said, right? And being able to say, no, if my person sees that I'm doing something that is not my best character, and they have a way to call me out, then I should allow them the space to do so and know that it's because they just love me. And a lot of couples, again, I've seen it, and again, I've experienced it, where partnerships don't allow each other to be each other's source of light, source of teaching, source of wisdom. Because there's maybe insecurities or trying to prove that you're enough and getting hung up on your own things. Sometimes it's a lot of projection, right? So I love to hear that because I feel like people don't hear that enough.
No.
You got to have a partnership. Like you said, if you're not growing, you're dying. And part of growth is for your partner to be able to say, hey, look, you could be doing better here. You could be in this space here. And I get it. It's all about the delivery, right? The message.
It's all about the delivery, right?
I had a friend years ago. I've told this story 100 times, but I had a friend years ago and, you know, he wanted to be married and, you know, he had devoted his life to God and decided to be celibate in that journey. And he was looking for his wife. And he just could not find a wife. And he was very frustrated. And I said, well, what kind of wife are you looking for? Describe her to me. Who is she? And he gives this, you know, very specific description of what kind of wife that, you know, woman of God and so on and so forth. And he goes, to be honest with you, someone similar to you, like a woman like you. And I said, well, a woman like me wouldn't marry you. And he was really upset with me. And I said, well, let me tell you why. And I said, because as much as you're asking God for a wife, you haven't first stepped into the role of a husband for a wife. And so you have to be that first and ask God to give you the guidance to be the man to attract the woman. And he was really mad at me, but he said to me, Lorraine, I think some of the things you say are really powerful, but it's the method of the delivery which will determine whether or not it'll ever get to the destination. He's like, you could have told me that in a whole different way and I might have received it. But I felt like I was saying the right thing by him. But in that moment, it was a gut check for me to say, you know, you may have some meaningful things to say and you have good intention. But you have to also be mindful of the impact that it has when you're sharing the intention.
Absolutely.
Right?
And that is what I've learned too.
So let's segue real quick because I want to translate this beautiful conversation into how that dynamic fits in your business. Because you've got the foundation there, and we can say this is good for family and how we're going to raise our kids and this and that. But businesses, rise a whole nother set of issues and problems
Yes,
and
they do.
dynamics, especially because it also intertwines livelihood.
Yes.
That's true.
So how did you all first decide to get into the business that you're in? Talk a little bit about that business for the audience.
Yeah.
And then I'll get into the other questions.
Okay. So we are event planners. You know, we're believers. We believe in God, and we had no idea. I went to school. I told you I am a licensed clinician. And so during the pandemic, the girl who braids my hair, she made a referral to a friend of hers for us to do services for them. I had no idea. I get a phone call. I think that it is a client for therapy.
For therapy, yeah.
And
It was a graduation party.
she's
So
talking
you know
100
Okay.
miles
schools
a minute.
and graduations that stopped. You know,
So
they had
this was
shut
not
down.
a field or a thing
No.
at
No.
all.
At
So
all.
let me,
This is-
and the
this is
only
so
way
unique.
I can really preface it is that compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
So we love beautiful things. We bought our house, we went on YouTube. I'm like, I feel like you can build a fireplace. He was like, I feel like I can too. Boom, it's a
love it.
fireplace,
Love
right?
it.
So we're doing these things, we're sharing these things online. We've always loved entertaining. We have friends over, very minimal. Compared to the work we do now, there's no comparison of what we were doing at our house. But
Right.
we were always hospitable, welcome people in, and we posted about it.
Okay. This
Yeah.
is so interesting.
So that's that.
Okay.
So the braider makes the call, she refers us,
Yep.
and the lady's talking, and finally it dawns on me, what are you calling about? Like, I'm so confused in this conversation. And she was like, I need you to design my party. And I was like, what? I don't do that. And so I said, can I call you back? And I immediately call him.
Yeah.
And he's like,
Of course, she calls me, and I'm like,
we can do that.
I said, is she willing to pay? We can do it. She was like, are
love
you
this.
serious?
So
I'm like, yeah, why
I'm
not?
totally-
Once again, anything I feel like me and her can do together, we can figure it out.
And that's
right?
why I called him, because I
Right.
was like, if he thinks we can do it, we can do it. But
Yeah.
I was not certain. So I tell him this, and he's like, I'm going to find all the things. It'll be fine. Tell her you can do it. So I call her back, and
love
I'm like,
this.
hey. And I said, in full transparency, I am not an event planner. I have never been paid to do events. I don't know what you're going to get, but we have a spirit of excellence about it. It's going to be good. I just don't know. I just need you to know I have not done this before. You know what? My friend says to trust you. I trust it. Let's do it. So he starts looking around for
Yeah.
all the things. And
Rental
I said, okay.
places.
He finds everything. We do it. I mean, this woman is crying. She's like, what you guys have given me and my daughter. And
Well,
we're
it's good that
standing
you were
back.
licensed therapists over there. You can
Right,
talk her
right.
off her proverbial
Okay.
ledge in the
Yes,
meantime.
'cause I was like-
this is working.
Listen.
Events and people's emotions.
Yes.
This is great.
This
This
is
is
great.
great.
There you go.
And so we do it, and the fulfillment that we felt, we were like, well, maybe we can do this. We can try to do this.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I literally go into prayer, and I'm just like, okay, God, if this is something that we should even remotely be doing as a hobby here and there,
Right.
I need to know that from you. The next call we get then is from the braider. So, I mean, maybe days after this prayer. So, and let me back up, because the same day that I get a call from the braider, me, him, and my mom, because my mom has moved here since my father's passing. She lives with us. We go to Home Goods, and I see these little cute pillows, and they look like little gobbers or something like that. They're green.
Yeah.
That's all I know. I see those. I'm on Pinterest, and I'm like, oh, there are these little cute teepees. You know, when the little girls have the teepee parties. So I'm thinking about that, say a prayer, go on my day. A couple hours later, the braider calls me and was like, hey, those teepees, have you seen those? And I was like, yeah, I've seen those. And so
How ironic. Yeah.
she says, I've seen those. And I said, okay. She said, well, can Trey make those for me? Because they see Trey making all these things on Facebook.
And this is for her daughter's
birthday. So I'm like, okay.
And this is a totally new client all of a sudden,
totally
right?
new
Okay.
client.
Correct.
So she says, well, yeah, can Trey make them or however? And I said, do you want to keep these? And she goes, well, if I don't have to, I won't. Because now I'm thinking inventory. If I'm going to do this, I need to collect things to
Right.
make it easier for me to do it again. And so she was like, yeah, you can keep them. I said, what kind of theme do you want to do? I'm like, unicorn something. And she was like, what about slime? These green things I saw
Right.
in the store, I told my husband and my mom, these remind me of slime. I said, I want to do a
That is
slime
so-
party.
That's like God's
God's
confirmation.
total
Yeah.
confirmation. And
Yeah.
when they told me to buy them, I told them no, not until someone asked. That night.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. From there, every single thing specifically that I prayed about
Wow.
we started
What's
doing
happening?
these picnic tables. And so from after we did the party, we really started thinking about marriage and relationship and how all these people are struggling online during the pandemic. Divorces are popping up. People are going nuts with their partners. And we were like, what is stuff that we can do that will like bring the intimacy back and get people together? And so my friend called me and was like, have you seen these picnic tables in California? They're doing them at the beach. And I was like, send me a picture. And I'm like, Trey, build this. He
Yeah.
was like, okay, we'll see if somebody
build
calls
I love
us.
that you're like the visionary.
Yeah.
And then you're like, Trey, build it.
Right.
Fireplace.
Trey.
Build it, Trey.
Literally.
I
literally.
love
That's the
that.
dynamic. That's
That's
the
our
dynamic.
That's
dynamic.
powerful. That's powerful.
And so my best friend calls us and she's like, I know you got a picnic basket. And I was like, a picnic basket? I said, girl, Trey's gonna make you a table. We're doing a whole thing. And she was like, really? We did it. I call up my other friends and I'm like, listen, can we do these picnics for you all? Let us take pictures.
I love this.
The whole thing. I mean, from there, the business
You start
sky
picking up, yeah.
rocketed. People are calling us from everywhere
It is such, man,
to do these picnics.
I literally have goosebumps listening to this story.
It was
Because I
mean,
think sometimes, again, and I'm going to circle back to just being obedient to the call,
yeah,
being obedient and loving to one another. When you can create as much harmony in your life,
yeah,
you get clarity in things. Even when it's something you would never think, it's amazing how things will come into your
Yeah.
life.
yeah.
And because, and again, because there's not the chaos, you hear it,
Yeah.
Correct.
you know?
Yeah.
And to think, and not only that, but you guys were tapped into something greater than yourselves.
Yeah.
So
You had
much
this
greater.
idea of like, how do we help other people, other couples?
We had a husband and wife. We did an event like at Mountain's Edge Park, and the man walked up from being surprised by his wife. I mean, he's bawling. Like, oh my God, you did this for me. The testimonials, the stuff people
Right.
were saying to us, we were blown away that like something created from our hands, from like we sat down and I mean, but it was with love. We were doing
Yeah.
it. We're like laughing and doing it together and like, they gonna love this. And then they come and they're so emotional. And we were like, this is it. Like, where did this come from?
Do you think that that's a part of the magic, is that you all both actually enjoy it?
Yes.
And that you're making it fun along the process.
Yeah.
Because again, when we talk about business and couples in business,
Mm-hmm.
you know, would you say maybe some of the mistakes is that maybe it's one person's idea and the other one feels forced to be a part of it, or that they're not on the same page with
That
it?
actually happened for us. So
Okay.
really quick to the beautiful things that we love doing. With his mom loved interior design. My dad did too. So we kind of built that almost male-female dynamic with
Gotcha.
them in our lives growing up. So when we got together, even when we were 18 in our apartment, we built our own bed. And we did, like, there was no Google and all of that stuff. Like, we were just thinking of things to do.
Right.
And so, again, those full circle moments. But I do think that in this, the call came to me. I started thinking of the name, even though I felt he was a part of it from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
As a man, ego rose, and he was like,
No
this
ego.
isn't my thing, though. Because what happened, we're having this fun. It's almost like a hobby. We're loving it.
Right.
We can't really work right now, so let's do this. It got serious, and I was like, I'm leaving my job. Can I leave this job? What do you think? He was like, yeah, I leave. I pursue it. Business goes nuts. I'm like, so now you got to leave your job too, because we can really do this. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
This isn't my thing. That's your thing. I was like, what do you mean?
I love this transparency. How did y'all navigate that?
So for me, it was So of course I like the idea and the experience of us creating and doing things for people. So that was the fun part. I never thought of this actually being a business, right? So when she was like, oh, well, let's make this a real business and I want to do this full time, I'm like, all right, you can jump out there and do this, but I'm
We
not
got
doing
these
this full
kids
time.
now.
Yeah.
Ain't
Right,
nobody
right.
leaving
You
their
know, so I
job.
was doing marketing for a hospice agency at the time. And of course, you know, with the pandemic, things kind of slowed down. So I had more free time doing that at the early stages of doing the events and considering doing the business. But then when she went into it full time, I'm like, okay, let me see how serious she is. Let me see if she really put in the work and the dedication to making sure this business actually succeed. Every day she was researching, doing stuff, coming up with content, reaching out to people, putting things out there.
Love it.
I'm like, dang, okay, so she really serious about this. So when she first came and asked me, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Like, you can do it full time and I'm cool with that. And I always help and support you. But that wasn't like, I felt like a thing for me, right? A lot of the events, a lot of the time it's women who is usually the clientele that's usually contacting. And I'm like, that's a good time for you to, chop it up, meet some new women. We can put on a nice thing for them, a party or whatever the case is. And that was pretty much it for me. But when I noticed how serious she was and I noticed the business was steady growing and we will put goals out there to say, okay, well, this year, God, see if we can make, this amount of money, can we kind of like double what we did last year?
Doubling,
and when it was
tripling.
happening, I'm like, okay, maybe God is
Our
actually
second
calling
year in
us.
business, we were multi-six figures, just us two doing it.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, I think that also you didn't give credit to this. People started referring to us as the couple that did the events together.
Yeah.
So then
That
I
didn't
was like,
matter to me.
listen, people.
So
it
you were
didn't-
like real.
Yeah,
it
I'm
was
still
like,
gonna be there.
relax.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, listen, these people, I noticed then it was bigger than us.
Yeah.
Because I'm
And she
like,
did, and she always said that.
God is answering this and
Yeah.
he's showing up the feedback. I mean, we didn't know it would have the impact that it did
Right.
just off of doing event. I didn't really understand that part of it, but I recognized that like this is a part of our ministry, if you will. Like this is how we're touching people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So for me, it was just more so I was going along, right? I'm being a support to her. We talked about
But
all
he came
that,
to
and
the
I'm
other
like,
side.
yeah. And eventually, well, as a man, you kind of think about, because growing up, as men, you think that you're like the leader, the head. You got to be the one kind of like guiding and directing your family and what it is that you do. So like she said, part of the ego part of being a man did come into play, because I'm like, this is your thing. I'm not about to jump completely on board and actually do that. But over time, I started to recognize, no, this is a us thing. This is something that God is clearly blessing us with, and something that he wants both of us to be able to do and supposed to be in working together. So I end up saying, okay, you know what? God, if this really, what it is that I need to do, and, we really need to do this full time, then I want to make sure that we have a dynamic, like an actual structure on our roles and what it is that we
So
do.
get in
I'm
the
like,
lanes that you need
yeah,
to be
because
in.
I'm like,
have
I'm not
that
about
part.
to get in there and we just
'Cause
keep
that's
doing the way we
important.
are. Yeah. Oh my
Yes.
God. Very important for me. Because I had to feel like
He had a place.
there you go. I had a place that I have, because of course she's the ones dealing with the client, the front end, and I'm more so coming in on the back end. And I'm like, I don't like that as a complete dynamic, because when it comes down to who makes the final say, how do we actually go about doing that?
And in a sense, you just wanted to preserve and make sure your masculinity was still there.
Absolutely.
Because I can understand when you're a strong woman, a very assertive woman, and you guys did this thing as fun, and now you're like, no, I'm going to make this a
Do this
business.
here, yeah.
I can understand how you were saying, okay, but I'm the head.
Exactly.
I'm supposed to be the man. This should actually be the thing that I'm at the forefront of.
Right.
And navigate. So how did you, we've got a few more minutes left, but how did you, because I really want to talk about this part, because this is where you have to navigate those indifferences. Because now at one point, he's like, that's all you. You want him in. He doesn't want to. And if we're not careful in situations like that, it can build some resentment.
100%.
So how did you navigate his initial answer as no before he came to the decision like, all right, I see it's working?
Honestly, I went to it in prayer, because I felt like it is going to have to be an act of God for him to understand that I need you in this. I can tell you, but when you see the volume coming in and it starts moving in the way that I know it's going to, you're going to recognize we can gain more in this building something legacy for our children versus you going to this job. You're a salesperson, implement that here. That is your space. That is your, so I reassured him. I told him like, listen, I don't have all the business background. Even when we were younger and entrepreneurship was a thing for him, he was very clear that he had ideas around business that I did not know.
Right.
So once he shared those with me, I felt like, okay, listen, all the things we've been talking about forever, it's coming to the forefront. Like, let's implement that in this business.
Yeah. Yeah, so she kind of just laid it out for me and made me just kind of like do some self-reflecting. And like I say, having a relationship with God and kind of talking to him, I just always try to pay attention to the signs and the things that are happening in our lives. Like I say, when we was getting those things at the beginning, I was thinking, okay, this is cool, this is
This
fun,
is a
something
fluke,
we should be doing. But I didn't think this is what we should be doing full time, both of us.
Right.
So, and like she's saying, with people, the one thing people always told us that they admired about us was our relationship, was the dynamic of our marriage and how
Before we had a business, any of that.
raising kids, moving out here. Like all people always just admire how our relationship was. And they just be like, are you guys newly married? And it was like, because you guys are just having too much fun and laughing and all that. I'm like,
I love it.
Yeah.
It's inspiring.
No. Like, yeah. So I did have to go back and think about that. I did have to think about, okay, if this is something that my wife is doing and she's moving in this direction and God is calling us, why would I now leave myself out or hinder us just because of my ego, just because it wasn't a business idea I thought of, just because it wasn't something that I'm in the forefront of actually steering or leading the way? I did have to put my ego and pride to the side.
That's a
for the betterment of both
powerful
of
thing
us.
to be able to reflect and recognize.
Yeah.
And then surrender to
Surrender.
To
There
it,
go. Yeah.
That's powerful. So as we close, man, there's I would love for you guys to come back.
Yes.
We will.
And have more of the business conversation and even more couples like maybe do 2 separate segments.
Yeah.
But as we close, for people who are watching, what would you all say? Let me think of this, like the fundamentals for foundation.
Yeah.
How that carries into business. And then how do you navigate the ebbs and flows of just life and being a beautiful couple? It was a loaded question, I know.
It was.
So foundation,
Foundation.
ebbs and flows.
Ebbs and
And
flows.
I can't remember the other thing.
Yeah,
I
no,
said.
that was
Right.
2 of them.
Yeah.
I would say for the foundational aspect, you're going to need that in terms of the longevity of not only your relationship, which is the foundation of it all, but to go into a successful business together. I think the ebbs and flow portion is just prioritizing what was before any of this. Making sure that I always see my person when I'm looking across, to make sure that there is an element of friendship, of funness, of intimacy, that is how we navigate it all. Like, we keep the priority and the focus us.
Love that.
Nothing is more important than us.
Yeah.
That is really my heart posture towards him.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So I would say foundational wise, teamwork, Just
Yeah.
remember, you guys are a team. You guys are both choosing to spend your life together and do life together. So when you go into business, you guys just got to both be committed to, we're going to make sure this business is successful. We're going to make sure this business thrive the way that we both actually see fit. And with that, you got to understand we all got our certain roles. So you got to make sure that you understand and make roles and communicate with each other. Hey, this is the area I think I will be good at. This is the area that you maybe be good at. And then sometimes it may need to change. You guys may set up the roles a certain way. Then over a period of time, you may recognize like, I don't really like this. You actually handle this now. Or I'm not really doing that well at it. Maybe you give it a shot or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
So I just think teamwork, communication definitely is the foundational things that you need. And then as far as in the ebbs and flows, like she's saying, just recognize that it's you guys together. Y'all are going through life. You're going to get some things right. You're going to get some things wrong.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, this is your life with your partner. Just enjoy it. You're going to be mad at each other, maybe at each other's throats for a while, but you always got to
Figuring it out,
remind yourself, you know what, I love this girl, or she loved this guy, whatever the case is. And you just kind of reflect back to, it's us doing life together. We're not going to have it all perfect, but it's all worth it.
It's like being the beacon of light in any space of darkness will
There you go.
always show and shine.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. And I love the two. I think it's really inspiring and infectious. Like I said, when I first met you all, it was super infectious. And even just sitting here across
Thank
you all, you
you.
can feel
appreciate
the
that.
love and the dynamic and the authenticity that
Thank
you all
you.
have. And so I think it's very special.
Thank
So
you. Thank you.
thank you
Thanks for
again for being.
having us.
Yes, I'm so
Yes,
happy.
thank you.
Yeah.
So
Thank
I
you.
hope that you all were enlightened like I was in this conversation. If you have an event that you want planned here in Las Vegas,
Yes,
I will put all of their contact information. Their events are luxurious and thoughtful and beautiful just as they are. So if you need an event, I'll put the information down there and follow them so you can see their lives, their wonderful lives. And until next time, thank you. Ciao.